Good evening again, everyone. Welcome to our Advocacy 101 session. We're so excited that you made a decision to join us on this evening so that we could share some tips and tools with you as we get ready for our 2026 legislative session. My name is Lakeisha Cook. I'm the very proud Executive Director of Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. I'm excited as we get closer to the beginning of our legislative session. I believe we're just under a month out. Our legislative session is scheduled to start on January 14th. And so we thought it would be a good idea to host a session for people who may not be that familiar with the legislative process. And maybe you are a bit familiar, but you just want to brush up on your skills. Some bills are already starting to be filed, so there's information that's out there. And so we just wanted to put together an introductory session to give you access to some of the tools that we find to be the most helpful, give you some tips about what advocacy looks like, particularly faith-based advocacy, give you a little bit of insight on some of the things that we're working on, and give an opportunity for you to ask some questions. I am happy to have one of my colleagues with me to co-facilitate this session, Kathryn Haynes, who is our health equity manager. So she'll introduce herself a little more when she brings her voice in a little bit later. But again, I'm Lakeisha Cook. I'm here in Richmond, Virginia. It's my home, but I also have connections to Northern Virginia. I grew up in the DMV area in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, right on the other side of the bridge. I've lived a couple of places in Virginia, and even though this isn't where I was born, I do consider it home. So we're getting ready to do our Advocacy 101. And so, as with any Zoom session, we ask if you're not speaking into the space that you make sure that you keep yourself muted because it helps to cut back on the background noise. I will acknowledge I do have a little furry co-facilitator that lives in my house. So if you hear a bark, that's my dog Peru, and he just wants to bring his voice in to share a little bit tonight too. But hopefully he does not start barking while we're doing the session. But again, if you just keep yourself muted, it'll help us cut down on the noise. And if you have any issues from a technical side, if I'm talking and facilitating, you can always send a message to Kathryn, and she'll try to attend to make sure we can correct whatever is going wrong. And then vice versa, when Kathryn's presenting, if you need something, I'll be watching the chat. You can put questions in the chat as we're going through the information. We'll try to catch it as we're going through, but if we don't get to your question as we're going through the information at the end of the session, we'll also have an opportunity for you to ask questions. Okay. All right. So I am going to share some slides. And so I'm going to pull up my presentation on the screen. So if you just give me 1 second. Come on. All right, there we go. And if you could give me a thumbs up, if you can see it, can you see what's up on the screen? Okay, that's good. All right, so again, welcome to our Advocacy 101 session on tonight. For those of you that may not be familiar with Virginia Interfaith, or if you're just getting connected to our work, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and the mission of our work is to engage people of faith and goodwill in advocating racial, social, and economic justice in Virginia's policies, practices through education, prayer, and advocacy. So for us, we're all about power building and making sure that we're sharing resources with all people in Virginia that want to fight for justice. And so one of the ways in which we fight is through advocacy. And so that's why this session, we're going to share some tools on, what is advocacy and how do we do it from a faith-based perspective. Virginia Interfaith has been around for quite some time. It was founded back in 1982. I wasn't born yet. No, I'm kidding. I was born. I was about 6 years old when the organization was founded. But we are the largest faith-based advocacy organization here in Virginia, and we're actually one of the biggest ones in the country. We have it's closer to 30,000 members connected to our work, and that also consists of over 700 houses of faith, thousands of clergies of faith. But not only do we have people of faith, but there's real intentionality, even if you don't believe in organized religion, that you have an access point to our work. And so we also engage people of goodwill. We are a strong but mighty staff. There's 10 of us that are on staff currently, but we also have wonderful volunteers and interns and an amazing engaged board that help us to carry the work. But not only do they help us carry the work, you also help us carry the work. We're able to accomplish the great things that we can accomplish because we have so many people across Virginia that are engaged in the work that we do in our fight for justice. So, when we're talking about advocacy, we believe it's really important to define what we mean when we use this word. It's a word we hear often, but the definition that we lean into is advocacy is any action that speaks in favor, recommends, argues for a cause, supports or defends or pleads on the behalf of others. And so, when we say advocacy, we're talking about those actions that we take in the fight and pursuit for justice. So at Virginia Interfaith, not only do we believe in advocacy being a powerful tool in the fight for justice, but we also believe in the power of faith-based advocacy. Whether, whatever your faith belief system is, allowing that to be part of the foundation and the fuel for how you show up in fighting for the work of justice. And so when I think about faith-based advocacy, it's an automatic focus, not just on myself and my well-being, but it's the focus on my neighbor. And neighbor being not just the person that lives in my community, but everyone that's in the midst of Virginia. So I'm not just fighting for me, I'm fighting on behalf of all Virginians. There is an African concept called Ubuntu that is a guiding concept for me, and it has been throughout my ministry and professional life, and just how even my family shows up in the world. Ubuntu means I am because we are. And it's talking about the connection of our humanity. So I can't fully understand who I am in my humanity and how I've been created outside of my connection from you. So it's not enough for me to win, and it's not enough just for me to thrive. I don't win unless we're all winning and we're all thriving. So that whole love and focus on neighbor really undergirds this understanding of a faith-based advocacy approach. It's engaging people out of their faith and it speaks and acts in love. And it also draws from faith-based practices and resources. So whether you are Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, what are the tenets in your faith that really again become the fuel for your fight for all the people that live in the midst of your community. Another African philosophy that really illustrates this is this concept of sawubona and injikona. So sawubona is a greeting that you will hear people use in different regions in the continent of Africa. Instead of saying hello to a person when you come encounter them on the street, you say sawubona. And sawubona means I see you. And then once you tell a person that you see them and you're affirming their humanity and their presence, the person then responds by saying Njikona, which means I am here. So for me, this becomes again the connection to the beauty of the work of advocacy because it's the affirmation of seeing one another completely in the fullness of our humanity. And I believe the world would be a better place if we would really truly see one another and not just be caught up in the differences, but I acknowledge that we may be different, but it doesn't matter if we're different. We celebrate that and we fight for one another because, again, it's about the collective winning and the collective good of the community. And so, faith based advocacy is a part of the work that we do here at Virginia Interfaith. Now, if I were to tease that out just even a little bit more, me coming from a Christian perspective, there is a scripture that I often lean into when talking about faith based advocacy that comes out of Luke, the 18th chapter. And without going into depth about the story, there is a widow who is fighting for justice. She's fighting in order to lay claim to some land. Now that she is a widow and her husband has passed on, she wants to be able to lay claim to the land so that she's able to go ahead and advance the livelihood of herself and her family. And she keeps going before a judge asking that she would get justice, but not just fighting for justice for her, but she recognizes if she gets justice, all the widows in her community get justice. So again, it's that fight for the collective. And even though she kept going and asking for justice, and this leader who was described as not loving God and having no respect for God and no love for people, he kept saying no over and over again, but his no didn't stop her pursuit for justice. Because sometimes the fight for justice doesn't, we don't get victory quickly. Some of the fights are a marathon. I mean, Kathryn, it makes me think about our fight for the bias reduction bill. Like we just have to keep fighting over and over again. And even though we keep being told no, we don't stop because we understand the importance of the work. And so this woman keeps fighting for justice, not just for herself, but others. And finally, she wears the political leader down. And he's like, you know what? If this, I can't take it. This widow keeps bothering me over and over again. So I'm going to grant her justice because she's wearing me out. And so I believe this is a great illustration that we can hold on to when we think about like the power of our advocacy and the power of determination and consistency when it comes to some of the fights that we come up against when we're advocating for justice. So we're called to do this work. And so this work can happen in a lot of different ways. Here at Virginia Interfaith, we focus on state-based advocacy. So we're advocating on the state level, really fighting for justice within our state legislature. But the fight can also happen from a local space. We can advocate on our neighborhood associations, city council, government, county governments, and the school board. We need to have people of faith's voices in those spaces so that again that moral good, that moral imperative is always in front of those people that we've elected to serve on behalf of the people of our communities. And so I've used this illustration before, and I actually was with Kathryn about a month ago, and we were sitting in a session about public health. And this illustration of the waterfall is something that they use in public health quite a bit. And when they start describing the waterfall, I saw the connection to the greater advocacy work, particularly faith-based advocacy work, when you're thinking about how congregations and people of faith sometimes show up in justice work. And so there was a waterfall, and there were people at the base of the waterfall. And what they were noticing is people kept falling over the edge. And so they're watching people fall over the edge of the waterfall and flailing in the water at the base of the waterfall. And it was disturbing the people that was watching what was happening. And so standing at the base of the waterfall, they start trying to intervene and give help and support at the base. So whether they're throwing in life preservers, they're throwing ropes in, trying to get people out, they're all trying to help solve a problem of these people who keep falling over. Finally, after helping for some time, somebody that's standing at the base makes the observation, well, wait a minute, people keep falling over the edge. What's causing them to fall? And someone finally goes up to the top of the waterfall and they realize that the people aren't just accidentally falling, but somebody's actually pushing them over. And so instead of just giving service at the bottom and throwing life preservers and ropes to try to meet the need at the bottom of the waterfall, some people start going up to the top and dealing with who's doing the pushing. And so when we're thinking about how we approach the work of justice, I believe a lot of our congregations have really done very well at meeting the needs at the bottom of the waterfall. People getting pushed, people hungry, people in need, people needing clothing. Like we'll do clothing drives, we'll do food banks. Like we really know how to do a lot of direct service. But there also needs to be people of faith at the top of the waterfall, really addressing those systems that keep pushing people over. There's some real intentionality in the push. The system is set up to push people. So, how do we go up and disrupt that? So, it's not that we want everyone to move from the bottom, but how do we attend to both places? And so I believe advocacy and the work of justice is really finding out and figuring out how do we assist at the top of the waterfall? How do we go up and find out what's really going on with the pushing? How do we center the voices of those being pushed so that they can talk to us about their experience and they can be a part of the solution of really disrupting that whole system so people are no longer falling over? And so tonight, we're just going to give you some tools that help at the top of the waterfall. We're going to give you some tools and give you hopefully a little bit of practice on how to use these tools to arm yourself so that you understand what's really going on in the on the state level when it comes to the legislative process, so that again you can just become a bit more powerful in your fight for justice. And so now I'm going to tag my wonderful colleague in to take us a little deeper into a glimpse into what really happens in the legislative process. And so, Kathryn, I tag you in.
Alrighty. I guess briefly, where I'm from, Army brat, born in Japan, lived in Norfolk when I was a baby, then all over the place, and came back to Virginia because my parents were going to go back north and they never did. And so now I am, after about 10 years in the Richmond area, I'm now in Williamsburg, Virginia, James City County. And so excited to be here with everyone tonight. So, the Virginia General Assembly, we have one of the shortest sessions. We have lots of claim to fames in Virginia. We meet for 60 days in even years and 30 days in odd years, but there's usually an extension to 45 because everybody decides 30 is, I mean, that's even 45 is crazy, but 30 is impossible. There are two chambers, the House and the Senate. And the House has 100 members, so it's bigger. The Senate is 40. And the House, because it's larger and represents smaller districts, tends to see themselves as being more responsive to what's going on day to day in their district because they have a smaller number of people that they represent. Um, I don't know if the Senate agrees with that, but that's what they say. There are approximately 2,000 bills that are filed each session. And the fascinating thing is, regardless of whether it's 45 days, 30, 45, or 60 days, it's still around 2,000 bills. You would think you would have 1,000 on short sessions, but that's not the case. And then again, the number of bills that get passed, it used to be, when I looked at this a couple of years ago, there were fewer bills, and I looked at the last 2 years, so 24 and 2024 and 2025, and you actually had more bills passed in the short session this time, which has not happened before. So in 2024, there were 845 bills that were passed, and in 2025, 916 bills. So if you can imagine, 45 days, 916 bills. And I think that's probably the number one thing that I like to share with folks, and for you to pass on to other people, because it's such a flurry. Your voice is so important, and we try to give you the tools that you need to make a difference. The next,
I'm sorry,
oh
Kathryn.
yeah,
Hold on. There we go. I hope our video works. We didn't test him.
oh,
And if he doesn't, wait, hold on. I'm going to stop sharing really quick. Just give me 1 second.
so who recognizes the picture that just came up on the screen? I bet someone does. My 22-year-old saw it and said, "Yes, mom, yes, 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 they have to see that." And I thought it was cool that my 22-year-old knew about it because I'm just a bill. Yes.
Yeah, give me 1 second, Kathryn. I'm gonna pull it up on YouTube because the link for some reason isn't working. So y'all give me a second. But you can describe the video, Kathryn, as I'm pulling it up.
So I wanted to play this one because it's fun and it's also very, very similar. Just instead of Congress, you replace House. The Senate is the same. Um, and I think that's about the only, I'll point out anything, but basically the rest of the process, the committee, that's what we go through in Virginia. So it's an easy way to share with your friends who are curious about how this whole process happens.
Yep, okay. I think I'm gonna be able to pull it up. Hold on. Let's see.
Yay.
All right, hold on. Okay, can y'all see my YouTube screen? Can you hear it? No. Wait a minute, hold on. We're gonna try one more time, and if it don't work, we're gonna say we tried this and it didn't work. All right.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. A long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will. But today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm going to live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. How I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By
old.
that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
He signed your bill. Now you're a law.
Oh, yes.
So the other thing I'll add that is maybe different is we go from one side to the other. But remember that short session, usually you'll have more bills on the House. So let's say you have 1,200 on the House side and 800 on the Senate side. And when they cross over, go to the other side, you don't have months, right? Sometimes you have a lot of time at the federal level, but you have one day, there's a crossover day and everything is flying from one side to the other, and you have to read another 800 bills or another 1,200 bills depending on what side you are on. And it is crazy. So we can go to the next slide. The bill doesn't want to go away. So how do we get that bill out of committee? Like the video said, we need your voice. So we need your emails, your calls. If it's a really close call, a phone call is going to help, because when things are moving so fast, they get so many emails, they might not read them. They'll count them, but not read them. And so if you want them to get a more direct message, a phone call. And then meeting with legislators, and at Virginia Interfaith, we provide the perfect place to do that. Day for All People, and I'm sure we'll share the link later, but we set the visits up. You come, we have around 400 to 450 people. And when you have big groups going in to meet with your legislator, it shows that there are a lot of people behind the little bill that needs to get up the steps. And next slide. Who is my legislature? So go to, and I put it in the chat, the state website. and there's a QR code you can use as well. But not everybody might have their phone. And so this is where it takes you. And look, it says, "Who is my legislator?" right there in the yellow circle. And so you click on that and you can put your address in and you can find out who represents you. And make sure, because sometimes you need to go to the, I've had people do this and they end up looking at federal legislators. So make sure that you're looking at your state reps. Next slide. Then now you know that you have your legislator. What do you do? What do you say? Well, sign up for action alerts, and you can, I guess you can copy and paste the thing under the QR code. But action alerts will then put you on our email list, and you will have an email that comes out during the General Assembly. And it will say, "Click here to have your," I'll use a bill that is already out. Senate Bill 22 is the bias reduction training bill. Click here to tell your senator to vote yes. And then we will let you know what committee it is in. It will go through multiple committees. The legislative information system, if you want to go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to put this link in the chat as well. There is a lot of information on this website. I would encourage you to play around with it a little bit. All right, I'm trying to get the chat. There we go. So if you plug in the little box at the top, the little white box, you put the name of the bill, for example, Senate Bill 22. Then you click enter and it will take you to the page that explains more about the bill. So there you go. We put in Senate Bill 22 and it's a bill that directs the Board of Nursing and Board of Medicine. It's about continuing education, bias reduction rate. There's a little snapshot. And then you can actually click on the PDF, and we're not going to do that tonight, but you can click on the actual bill language and read the bill, or you can just stay on this page and get the summary, because that is helpful too.
And I'll just say, Kathryn, when you're putting the search in, you see it says SB 22. That stands for Senate Bill. So you don't have to spell out Senate Bill. You just put SB, the number, or if it's a House bill, it's HB and a number or a resolution. So if you have the bill number, you're able to search that way. All right, hold on, Kathryn. I'm coming.
The other thing, just to troubleshoot, you need to make sure that it always has the current session. So if you see on the left-hand side towards the top, it says the 2025, right? I think it should say 20, it'll say 2026 regular session when you're in the 2026 year. So you can toggle and look at other years. So you're saying to yourself, why didn't I get an email alert for this particular issue that I'm really passionate about? Well, it's probably because your legislator is not on that committee that is hearing the bill. Eventually it'll get to the floor. Everybody in our membership gets the action alert, but when it's in committee, you only get the action alert if your rep is on the committee. So if you look at the little yellow circle, it is around standing committees, and you can go in, let's say that you're passionate about health, you can go and look at who's on the health committee on both sides, and they have different names in the House and the Senate, but both have the word health in them. So you can look health committee, and you can pick the housing, whatever is your passion. You can look and see, is my rep on this, or is the rep of my friend, right? Because we can go further when we bring our friends into this work. So my rep isn't on this committee, but I know someone and their rep. So call your friend and get them engaged. So we work on 5 different issues. Our buckets at Virginia Interfaith: healthy communities, criminal justice reform, affordable housing, economic justice, and civic engagement. So health equity, we advocate to increase access, and we have advocated, we've done this work for many years. So quality, affordable healthcare for all. We led the faith engagement to expand Medicaid and access to maternal health care. And we focus on the bias bill, reducing discrimination in healthcare and expanding healthcare to vulnerable populations. the bias reduction bill, probably many of you are familiar with, but it would require bias reduction training, and bias reduction training encompasses a number of different types of training, implicit bias, cultural competency, communication skills, right? There's a lot of research now that actually how you communicate influences whether or not your patient can hear you, right? So there's a number of different trainings that will reduce bias and thus improve outcomes in healthcare. And this year, we expect that it will pass. And I guess I will add in terms of it's good to share a data point. Racial bias is the most concerning in Virginia, and a data point that shows that it is getting worse, not better, is this year in Virginia, there was a maternal mortality review report. And we talk a lot about 80% of the deaths are preventable according to CDC. Well, in Virginia, for Black women and women of color, it was 100% preventable. So for white women, deaths were 80% preventable, but for Black women of color, the word in the report was women of other races, 100% of the deaths were preventable, right? So that's a clear sign that there's something else at work, bias. Next slide. Yes. Oh, wait, sorry. The expand access. Yeah. Expand access to midwives. So in Virginia, we have heard from a number of folks that are seeking access to midwives that if they are in an MCO, a managed care organization, that they actually cannot access a licensed midwife or midwives that are licensed by the state of Virginia because they're the managed care organization or Medicaid that they are in will not take their midwife. And so they lose all of their benefits, which would include cell phones, diapers. The managed care organizations are providing a lot of great benefits nowadays that vulnerable folks need. And so we wouldn't want them to lose their benefits. So the idea is bring a work group together. Everybody who's implicated, the midwives, the moms who can't get access to midwives, the health insurance plan, and figure out what is the barrier, what is preventing MCOs from working with all the midwives that are licensed by the state. Increasing access to registered nurses and advanced practice registered nurses in schools. So this would just expand the type of providers that you could use at-risk funding, which is funding that is targeted to schools with the most need, that really need extra funding to better serve their students. And these schools are often in healthcare deserts where kids are not getting access to care that they need. A simple solution, healthcare in schools, right? And so you could use this funding to pay for registered nurses and APRNs so that we have health in all schools. So this bill would provide protection for moms and babies who have been exposed to a substance when pregnant. And right now, the code in Virginia is very punitive. So the bill would remove the automatic abuse and neglect assumption that the code now it implies that you can consider substance exposure as abuse and neglect. It would also make sure that just the substance use alone, right, does not result in a referral. There would have to be other extenuating circumstances, evidence of harm. And there's also a cord blood testing piece that you would have to have informed consent. That's kind of a technical bill, but basically punitive approaches do not work. The research is very clear. And seeing the mother and baby as one unit rather than separated, you have the best outcomes. And that's what we want.
Me and my mouse are fighting.
I'm tagging you.
Yep.
Next.
I'm trying to get my mouse to act right. Okay, so we also advocate in criminal justice reform space. We've been doing this for years. I actually worked on the campaign to end the death penalty back in 2021, but we have also worked with limiting solitary confinement and limiting the use of attack dogs. But we continue to do work in this space in various ways, and there's a couple of bills that we're working on for this session. We worked on last session the Restoration of Rights, which is a constitutional amendment. It did pass through the legislature last General Assembly, but because it's a constitutional amendment, it has to go through the process twice. So thinking of the I am just a bill video, that poor little bill has to go through the process two times, and there has to be an election in between those two times it goes through. So we're looking to get it through one more time. And then once it goes through this second time, instead of going to the governor's desk to be signed, it then goes to the voters, and the voters are able to voice their opinion if they would like to enshrine within the Constitution a process for those who are coming out, excuse me, with felony convictions after they've completed their sentences, just automatically restoring their right to vote. I'm so sorry. I didn't cough the whole time that Kathryn was talking. Okay, we also have another bill. We have an initiative working on standardizing how higher education in prison looks in the state of Virginia in the Department of Corrections. And so Delegate Carr is bringing another bill this session to again address that standardization of what the delivery of higher education will look like. We're still working out the particulars of this bill, but this bill will come up again. Again, Delegate Carr is the sponsor for it. We also work in the space of economic justice. We've been on the front lines fighting for increasing the minimum wage. And we also have been fighting for paid sick days. This bill was able to make it through the legislature last session and made it to the governor's desk, but it was vetoed. And so we're going to go for it again. And so this bill would just ensure that all Virginians have access to paid sick days. And so it would create a standard so that employers have to provide 5 paid sick days each year to their employees. And so we know that this is a really important piece, particularly for those who work in the service industry. When we're coming out of the pandemic, we saw the impact in a very real way of people not being able to take sick time and not have pay. And when people aren't able to get paid, it absolutely has a ripple effect on how they're able to care for their families. And so we will continue to fight. We also will continue to fight for affordable housing. So as we're looking at the issue continue to persist all throughout the Commonwealth, really all throughout the country, we're looking to put some legislation into place to make it easier for localities to build affordable housing. We didn't put those two slides in, but there are two bills that we're supporting. One will expedite the zoning process so that localities are able to create an expedited process for any entity that wants to build affordable housing. And then we also will support the bill that we've been running for the last couple of years, Yes in God's Backyard, that speaks specifically about congregations building affordable housing and really making that process easier for them so that it doesn't take years in order for them just to get through the red tape to actually develop the housing. Can we make that process a little more streamlined? So when it comes to advocating for issues, a powerful piece to do it is coming together with others. We've talked about Day for All People. Kathryn mentioned it earlier. We are planning on January 21st to bring people of faith all to Richmond and to flood the Capitol with people of faith and goodwill, really speaking and advocating for just policies. And so we invite you to sign up to be a part of this program with us. I think right now we have 200 people signed up and we have room for 450. And so I would just encourage you, if you're thinking about coming, please sign up. Don't wait, because we may actually have to close sign up down for the first time and not have sign up the day of. So that's Day for All People. This was a picture from last year. We do host it at Centenary United Methodist Church in Richmond. It's in walking distance of the General Assembly, but for those who are not able to walk to do your legislative visits, we do have a bus that takes people there and back. This is a QR code that takes you to the link for Day for All, to registration piece for Day for All People. But if you can't scan the code, if you get our weekly newsletter, it's always there. And you also can find information about registering on our website. We also,
And I
in
put it in the
conjunction,
chat.
Thank you, Catherine. We also have for our college students something very similar to Day for All People, but it's called Student Day of Action, where they're also able to go and do legislative visits. This is the Chief of Staff for Senator Lamont Bagby. I think Senator Bagby came in the room right after we took the picture, but these are some of the college students that came in to do a legislative visit during Student Day of Action on last year. So if you know any college students in your life that or if you are a college student, we invite you to come. You can come Day for All People, or you can come Student Day of Action, or you can come both days. But this is on February 12th, and it also will be at Centenary United Methodist Church. So we want to leave you with this quote, and then we're going to open it up for questions. We do believe that the fight for justice is a collective fight, and so we lean in as an interfaith organization just to lift some words. And it says, He who sees equality everywhere, who sees, I'm sorry, it's blocking. Oh gosh. Okay, sorry. My box is blocking it, so I can't see what it says. Boop. Who sees others' happiness and sorrows as his own is considered the highest yogi. And so, again, we are just very grateful that you chose to share in the session with us tonight. And we gave you a couple of tools. Hopefully, you're able to bookmark those websites, and so that when even before session starts, you can go and start familiarizing yourself with them. So, at that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other. And we will open it up to questions. So if you all have any questions, you can raise your Zoom hand or you can raise your physical hand. We can see quite a few people on the screen. Tell us what questions you have. No questions? Yes. Hi, Miss Monica.
How do other people access this video? And then I didn't go to the one about taxes.
Yes.
So how can I get that one?
Yes. Now, Catherine, I don't know how quick you are on the keyboard, but we do have a YouTube page. And so if we can, Catherine, if you could pull our YouTube page up and put the link in the chat, the tax policy video is already there. Our General Assembly preview is also on the YouTube page, and you'll get just a bit more information about the bills that we're holding as priority, along with some bills that we are supporting and maybe not leading on. And the same will be for this session. It will be put on the YouTube page. And in the roundup next week, there'll be a link. So for the newsletter that comes out on Wednesday, it's actually going to come out Tuesday. So we're not sending it on Christmas Eve because nobody would probably read it. But it'll be in the newsletter, so you'll be able to click there. But our YouTube has all of our video resources.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll try really hard to have this up by tomorrow.
I have another question.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how to say this, but you'll probably get the idea. I'm thinking, there are probably people who think, why should I go to this day for all people when my legislators have already decided what they're going to support? And we're coming in somewhere in the middle of it. It's not the summer when they're doing their thinking about it, or some other time before the General Assembly. What good does it really do?
So my answer to that would be there is power in the collective show of 400 people showing up at the General Assembly, people of faith that are easily identifiable because they all have the same bag. The legislators knew when we were in the building last year, and it was talked about from the time that we did Day for All People to the end of session. Now, it was talked about either people were joking like, oh, you're the group that jammed up the elevators, or it was talked about like, yeah, there was a lot of people that were here. Like it is a showing of the power of the base of people of faith within Virginia. And so I believe that's a powerful statement. And not just the showing of the power and the statement of showing up at the General Assembly, but we also have workshops that happen on that day where you're able to go a bit more in depth and study about some of these justice areas that we fight in. And then it's the power of being able to connect with other people who are fighting for justice from other places in the Commonwealth. I've heard over and over again, um, I was at an interfaith clergy meeting up in Northern Virginia, and I was talking about Day for All People, and one of the pastors said, you know, one of the most powerful pieces for her last year was being able to meet other Presbyterians from Southwest Virginia that she wouldn't have met had she not come for Day for All People, because they just didn't know each other. And so it's a powerful moment to network and connect and be reminded that you're not in this fight by yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I would add that tomorrow your legislator might support the bill, right? I think that Virginia Interfaith has a history of bringing legislators on board for bipartisan bills, and we don't ever give up hope. Senator Head is a conservative rural Republican senator, and he co-sponsored the bias reduction bill with Senator Locke, right? Who is a progressive urban uh, non-rural legislator. So we don't ever, as part of faith, right? We don't give up hope.
And I saw the comment in the chat. So the first day of the GA is the 14th, which is the Wednesday. So I believe it's always the second Wednesday of January that we start. And then Day for All People is the following Wednesday, which is the 21st. Dale, I see your hand.
Yeah. So I was poking around on the web page today. So I do like the newly redesigned website. Um, and I see that there is a Google Doc for the bill tracking. And I was wondering how often that's being updated, because I did see a couple of bill numbers on there and several of the spots were blank.
Yes. And so once session begins, the bill tracker is updated multiple times a day. I was actually doing the updating last year, so I'm saying that with like great confidence because literally as we're sitting in committee meetings and votes are happening, we're in real time. I was in real time in the document as I'm sitting in the committee room, updating the bill tracker so that it had up-to-date information. It is now just a beginning point for us, so we're not populating it quite yet because a lot of bills haven't been filed, so we don't have bill numbers yet. But you'll see as we get closer to the start date that the bills will start to be listed with the bill numbers. And once they're assigned to committees, you'll know what committees they're going to be in. We'll go in and we'll say this bill is going to be up for a committee vote tomorrow. I mean, so it's a great source of information once session begins. And as we get closer, you'll just see more information starting to be listed on it.
Thank you. I can't remember with a Google Doc. Can I put a tracker on there so I get a notice when it's updated, or do I just have to keep looking?
I don't know if you can make an alert for a Google Doc when updates are made. It may be you have to just go in and check multiple times a day. I will say a good point of reference timing wise is around noon when they're about to go into floor sessions. We will have updated what happened in the morning committee meetings. And then
Okay.
again in the evening, once we've gotten through those afternoon committee meetings, you'll see an update. So then you'll know what's going on, what's going to happen for the following day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, well, what we can do, we'll put our email addresses in the chat. You probably have my email address because I think I sent the confirmation for you registering for the course. And so you can always reach out to me by email. Kathryn will put her email address in the chat also. We are here as a source of resource. Wow, it's getting late. We're here as a resource for you all. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And again, I'm really going to shoot to have this video loaded on our YouTube by tomorrow. So if you want to share the YouTube link out to anybody, please make sure you do so. We are planning to continue to do sessions like this. This was an introductory, like just giving you some tips on some different websites that you could look at and use as you're preparing to come into session. But we're going to plan next year to do a series of sessions that you can sign up for if you want to get more information and get more tools and practice. You'll have an opportunity to do so. But thank you so much for signing on and spending some time with us tonight on this Thursday evening. And I hope you have a really good rest of your week. And if this is a holiday season for you, you have a good holiday season and a good new year. And hopefully, we'll see you on these justice streets fighting for justice. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good evening. Bye.